I was wondering your opinion on this and what even Jeffrey, I know he's got some knowledge in this, but when the battle resumes and we start doing more decapitating strikes, if we were to force or shift to maybe a little bit more on who they might try to pick to be the supreme leader later on, because the cardboard cutout's gonna, it's gonna, it's gonna go pretty quick. But if it's still alive, but I'm wondering is if you do a little bit more decapitation strikes on the people that would be almost a for sure for the next person in charge, it if when it's time for America to stop with the airstrikes and whatnot, and the essentially the final battle to begin, would it be smarter for the people to sit back and wait for the IRGC, what's left of it, to start to eat themselves? And then when they're attacking each other, you ambush the guy who's attacking the other guy, and then you take their weapons, and then you wait for that to happen again. You cherry pick, not you don't help one side out or another. You try and burn both sides as much as possible, and you try and ambush them, and you just make it so nothing can happen. And then, boom, everybody comes out on the streets after you got enough weapons, and you run through them bad boys.
So you asked Jeffrey that, right?
That's for both of you because you're
Oh,
Iranian, so you know what's going on, and Jeffrey's got military experience. So
yeah. This is more of a military question. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the best military operation would be to once the airstrikes resume. But before Jeffrey responds, the only issue with that is the only issue that I could think of is that maybe I'm wrong about this. That seems like it's going to take a long time, and I just think
not if Trump
yeah, not
starts tweeting about working with somebody on the inside. I feel
right.
that's really big in that plan. I forgot to state that. Also, the reason why I think this is important is because if you just end without something like that, the IRGC can just then turn on the people and start going at it because they don't have to worry about the bombs coming anymore. They got their proxies in the state. So I'm just
Hmm.
wondering if this isn't the more sensible thing to get them to a point where they're eating at each other. They cannot focus on the people, and then the people eat them from the outside.
So, what would be if I'm an IRGC commander? What would be my motivation to start shooting at other IRGC units, for
We don't
example?
agree on who's in charge.
Yeah, but I would if I'm an IRGC commander, I would know that as soon as this internal war starts, that would be the end of us. Like I would have enough foresight to understand that if our political infighting turns into military infighting, that is the end of us. I would know that. I would know that this is basically going to bring down the entire regime.
I think you only have to hit a couple more high-ranking people to have people who aren't as smart and intelligent as that put in those positions and thinking that they are the new badass and they need to do something on them. They need to be the big balls. They need to be the big swinging D. You know what I mean? They need to be the one that needs to bring this to fruition. And that's where I think they screw themselves. The end
Okay.
fighting.
So we're hoping that they're retarded enough to basically fall for this. That's what this plan requires. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somewhat. Okay.
I think we
Yeah.
got a good shot, bruh.
Yeah, I know. I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing. But let's see what Jeffrey has to say because this is more of a military stuff rather than a political one. Jeffrey, what do you think?
So it's a very interesting question, and it's not without it's not with that it has some validity to it. Just so I understand, like it when military operations resume, which it looks like they might, to target a lot of the remnant leadership of the IRGC to exacerbate the fragmentation that's already existing, and so setting up the pretext for like an intra IRGC bait and bleed so they kill each other. And then that would sit there. It's almost like then the Artesh would sit there and wait until they get to wait to whoever's the winner, then shoot the winner.
Exactly. Yes.
So that's not without its merit. Here's the issue. The issue is just as Armin had said. So probably protracted, probably would be something like a intrastate sectarian conflict similar to say Syria, where it destroys all the critical infrastructure and Iranians are caught in the crossfire and or killed or wounded or maimed via secondary and tertiary effects of that kind of intra-IRGC conflict. Now, the counter to that is the IRGC, it's better than that. The IRGC all in unison gunning down Iranians, civilians, and that's very true. That's a really tricky. That's a leveraging that and like waiting for that to like Deus ex machina eliminate the Mullah regime. Armin knows more about the cultural and organizational culture than I do because he's of Iranian descent. I mean, I can never match his insight on that. It just seems like there would be a lot of moving variables to that. I will say that the biggest push is to support track two material support efforts, including kinetic efforts and training lawful unconventional combatants, hopefully about 20,000 of them ish. And then I won't say go through all of it, and use them as hunter killer teams and or counter death squads to eliminate the Basiji remnants and or IRGC remnants. That might be better. That might be better. That said, you're talking about 8 months of training, probably $7.9 billion in funding, 18 months total. You're looking for shake and bake, getting something done real quick. The reason the Artesh, and correct me if I'm wrong, Armin. So the Artesh was created by the Shah, and when the Mullah regime and the red black fuckers that did what they did and took down His Highness's father and the noble house of Pahlavi, or let's say displaced them, yeah, the Mullah regime disempowered the Artesh because they didn't trust them, and that's why they created the IRGC, and that's why the Artesh gets all the, at least in the beginning, they got, if anything, hand-me-downs, very little ammunition, almost no medical supplies. Am I wrong in that?
Yeah, no, yeah, they get their budgets cut, and the IRGC's their budget keeps increasing every year. Yeah, so the IRGC is the ideal army that the Islamic Republic was, but the IRGC was created as an anti-coup measure against the Artesh.
Okay, we're already over time, so maybe Armin wanted to say something,
no,
and then we can.
Yeah,
do
because
the rest of it.
yeah, sorry. Yeah. So I just wanted to respond to Ryan again because I was thinking about what you're saying. This is the issue that if you want what you're saying to work, going back to the political, this is the problem with making that work. Okay, so we have a lot of division right now within the Islamic Republic. Do you guys see my mouse? You do, right? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So the problem is that the divisions that we're seeing, okay, is not within the IRGC mostly, right? So the divisions that we're seeing is IRGC versus like maybe the reformers, IRGC versus the president, IRGC versus Ghalibaf. Ghalibaf used to be IRGC, but he's not IRGC right now. So IRGC versus Ghalibaf, okay? IRGC versus this, IRGC versus that, IRGC maybe versus, I don't know. Yeah, no, not that's basically it. IRGC versus Ghalibaf, IRGC versus the president, IRGC versus some of the reformers over here. And what we were discussing earlier, what people are hoping for is IRGC versus the Artesh. Okay, this army over here. Okay, but I haven't seen many people talking about IRGC versus IRGC because we haven't seen any signs yet of inter IRGC divisions. I'm not saying we're never going to see it, but we haven't so far. I mean, we saw at some point this guy Ali Jafari, a huge internal fight between Ali Jafari and Ghalibaf back in the day. And again, Ghalibaf is considered to be somewhat IRGC, and we know Ghalibaf is close to Abdullahi, so maybe that is some division that IRGC against Ghalibaf. But these are minor divisions. This is not
what if you were
yeah.
taking out people like the guy on the Guardian Council next to the number 31? I think he's got the white. Yep, go down. He's in the Guardian Council. He's next to the number 30. Yep. Arafi.
Yeah, Arafi would be the highest likelihood of being the next supreme leader if Mujtaba is dead or killed. Okay,
that's what I'm saying. If we start taking out those types of guys, and then we take out a couple of military leaders, and you have the only person left in their spot is a young, strong-headed guy. I think that's my play. That's what I'm talking about.
Here's the thing, but if Moshtaba is dead and you're making Arafi the supreme leader, then the supreme leadership position has become close to irrelevant, like by that point. So it doesn't really matter if you kill the supreme leader after that, because then they will replace one irrelevant person with another irrelevant person, right? So you mentioned the 31 number here. Okay, the main people you need to take out is this 32 people over here. Okay, because Ali Jafari, when he was the head of IRGC, he came up with this design, this Mosaic design, which made the IRGC much less centralized and made these 32 provincial IRGC commanders somewhat independent. So that's why if you take out the IRGC commanders, these people will do their thing, right? And the IRGC has been successful in making all of these commanders be somewhat ideologically driven. So that ideology creates like somewhat of a alignment on values. So these 32 commanders, you need to take them out, because this mosaic structure that Jafari created many years ago makes the IRGC somewhat able to continue operating even when they lose leaders. That's what you need to take out. And the best thing you could do is arm the Iranian people, to be honest. If you're looking for doing something against IRGC, honestly, like arm the Iranian people with guns and drones.
Where's all
and
the
train them
leftover
how to-
Liberty pistols?
Okay. We need Ukrainian soldiers. We have already seen this. Ukrainian soldiers were in Syria training the opposition against Assad with drone technology, and that proved to be very effective. That's what we need to do with the Iranian people. We need the Ukrainian soldiers in southern Iran, liberate Bandar Abbas, turn that into a base of operations, vet Iranian people. Don't just hand out guns and drones willy-nilly to people. Have a vetting process and then a training process, and then give them drones and weapons and start liberating Iran from the south. Keep going up. And then doing it in Bandar Abbas makes a lot of sense, because even before you liberate Tehran, as that army expands, you basically have made the Islamic Republic lose control over the Strait of Hormuz as well. So we have a very short win before you go for the bigger win long term. They should hire me at the White House.